Even now that school's out, I can actually make a video that's both more than a minute and less than an hour long. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hey everyone, welcome to the grand return of What Mark Spins, my vinyl collection series, aka the bi-weekly Spin It Reviews Dad Rock Hour. Today we're going to be going through the G's and the H's, so let's get this thing started. So first up are my two Genesis records. So these were, I believe, two of the first records that I bought in a record store after I started collecting vinyl around 2011 or 12 or so. I guess that I had just seen a behind the music on them, was thumbing through some records and thought, hey. Anyway, the first record from here is And Then There Were Three. I kind of wish I had some of the Peter Gabriel era stuff. I remember really loving that Lamb Lies Down on Broadway album. But either way, this is one of the first Phil Collins-led albums, so it's still kind of in that transitional period where they were kind of embracing the pop stuff, but still kind of a prog rock band at the same time. Even the album name, And Then There Were Three, just a reference to how they would lose a member and then just not replace them until that awkward mid-90s period. Anyway, like I said, they kind of kept a lot of both of their sides on this record, with some like the synth tones and like the less obviously verse-chorus structures on songs like The Lady Lies. Okay, quick side note, am I the only one that thinks this looks kind of wrong? I mean, I'm trying to be mature here, but that does not look like a G, and with these glares, you don't know which one is an E, which one is an I. I'm just saying, a little sketchy. Let me know in the comments below. But like I said, this is kind of when they were starting to go in that poppier direction. Like, case in point, the final song on here, Follow You, Follow Me, definitely the best known song on this album. I believe it was like their first big crossover hit. Like, it's not the worst 70s soft rock song out there, but you can tell that it was just kind of tacked on at the end in hopes of crossing over. And it did, and it worked out kind of well for them. And the second Genesis record here is Abacab. So this came out in 1981, and listening to this right after that, earlier today, just kind of catching up, it was a pretty synth shift for sure. I'll put it like this, I was talking about synth tones earlier, and if your tolerance for like 80s workout synth tones is low, then I would recommend staying far away from a lot of this record. But I think it's a decent record, all things considered. There are a couple great standout songs on it, mostly like No Reply at All has that nice horn section, and Keep It Dark has that really weird like 6/4 groove. It's weirdly hypnotizing if you listen to it for long enough. I really love that song. It's kind of like a couple weird mid-period stuff here, but you know, it's interesting to look at. So, Genesis. And going from Genesis, originally fronted by Peter Gabriel, to a guy from the modern day who gets a lot of Peter Gabriel comparisons both vocally and in his music video aesthetics, segue. We have Gotye, Like Drawing Blood. I talked about this album a little bit in my What's in My Bag from earlier this year, and I finally got around to listening to it a few weeks ago. You guys might remember I mentioned in a podcast recently that his album Making Mirrors from 2011, it's got Somebody I Used to Know and all his other hits. It's one of my favorite albums, if not of all time, at least of the 2010s. I'm not going to go on about that because I'm talking about this album. This came out, I believe, in 2006, 2007, kind of. They had a couple different releases. But yeah, this is another great record, just a really eclectic indie pop, and I do mean indie pop, like not like, oh, they're synth pop, but they got reviews on Pitchfork. No, I mean like, there are hooks, but it's really weirdly constructed and eclectic and all that. Like, it's not as completely like different genre as on every song as with Making Mirrors, but you got some really vast influences. Like, you got some like European sounds coming through on Coming Back, and Heart's a Mess, which is 6 minutes in its album version. That's something that actually this album is really different from Making Mirrors. The songs run really long. For the most part, they justify it, but you know. Then you got some like soul and Motown influences on Learn a Little Givin' and Lovin', some upbeat indie rock on The Only Way and The Only Thing I Know, probably two of the more accessible songs on this record. I guess what really pulled together Gotye's sound is, well, first off, his voice, which is just really expressive and emotive and all that, but just as I really love his production style, because he knows how to emphasize a great, like, rhythmic groove with, like, a lot of potent bass, just make everything pop out at you in a way that I feel like a lot of his peers would just kinda let sit in the background, you know? And the subject matter can also go from really sad on a song like Heart's a Mess, probably the best known song on this record, just a really beautiful ballad there, to a song like Thanks for Your Time, which is literally from the point of view of an automated customer service phone line. It should not work as well as it does, but really recommend looking this thing up. And I'm just waiting so much for his next album, but he's like, oh, I'm gonna put out this album from my average garage rock band, and now I'm gonna go into politics, or whatever the hell he's doing now. Come back, Gotye, we miss you. Okay, next up is Grouplove, Spreading Rumours. Now, you might notice that, hey, this is just a blank sleeve with the album cover and the track list taped on the back yourself. What the heck is this? Well, let me tell you. This is a test pressing, actually, that I won in a Facebook contest where I, like, captioned the picture of a cat. I'll maybe put a screen cap of it up here. I'm not going to say too much here. It's another great eclectic indie pop record, definitely less eclectic or indie than Gotye. Again, I am waiting for Grouplove to come back, but it's like they've been playing a show here and there, and it's been a couple years, and this is becoming a pattern. And luckily, any predictability with my vinyl collection so far will come to a screeching halt here. Merle Haggard and Willie Nelson, Poncho and Lefty. There is a funny story surrounding how I ended up with this record in my collection. I'm sure most of you guys know Mike Seatown from Dead and Hip Hop, who has his own solo channel I've been sub to for a few years. And back in, I believe, 2013, 14-ish, he started doing vinyl collection videos, much like myself. There were a couple times where he said, you know, hit me up, message me if you want to trade something for this. So I messaged him and gave him a list, which in retrospect, it was a really dick move. I basically said all of the worst records I had, and just for some reason thought he would go for one of those in exchange for like a $30 Iron Maiden reissue. Anyway, he replied nicely as he could, saying no thank you. So I took the really desperate move and just said, I'll go to my record store and buy any record you want in exchange. And I remember that in one episode he talked about all of his Merle Haggard records, how he was a big fan of him. Of course, country legend who was part of the musical apocalypse, because it's been 2016. So I went to the record store and got this, and turns out he had the album on CD, so I just kind of ended up with this. I forgot this was the first country record I ever heard. This might have been after I heard Casey Musgraves, Same Show, Different Park. I am not the country guy on YouTube. If you want someone who knows how to talk about this record, just go to Spectrum Pulse. But I can definitely see this being good, you know, cry into your beer over something sad and meaningful type country music. And we're gonna leave it at that. Okay, next up is Head East, Flat as a Pancake. So these guys are a 70s classic rock band that, in my opinion, have one of the more underrated classic rock staples of that decade, Never Been Any Reason. I think that's a great song. And you know how I was talking about Gotye, how he's kind of a one-hit wonder, but he deserves so much more recognition, and I'm recommending you all of this stuff that you need to hear beyond the hits. This is not that, really. I'm just going to link that one song in the description, along with a song from each one of these albums in the description, and yeah, kind of all you need to hear with this super literal album cover. Just taking it that extra mile. Does that kind of look like Nash to anyone else? And the last record in this episode is Heart, Dog and Butterfly. First thing I noticed when I got this record is that it has some weird packaging. Like, it folds vertically like this, and it's not even consistent because then the gatefold's just normal. The spine, like, makes the album cover sideways. Probably the biggest songs on it are Straight On and Dog and Butterfly, title track. You know, one cool thing that you could do in the era of just hearing music on vinyl is that you can kind of albumized it to be in that half and half kind of way. And that's what they did with the 8 songs on here. So the first side is Dog, which is all like the rock songs, admittedly probably the least interesting half of it. And then the second half is Butterfly, which is more like the acoustic and like the songs to go into a bunch of different movements and crazy storytelling and stuff. Minstrel Wind is probably, the closer is probably the best song on this record, in my opinion. A lot of really out there and kind of tragic storytelling on that song, and some of the best vocals you're gonna hear. So that's Hearts, Dog, and Butterfly, and that'll end the Grand Return. So with the school year out, I've got a lot of videos planned for the next few weeks, hopefully. But yeah, I don't really ask anything at the end of these, so bye.